Welcome back to West Coast Commander. We hope you like our new logo. It's been a while, but we finally have some new content to show you. We are starting a new series, Meta vs. BREW. These videos will feature community members on new competitive EDH builds fighting out against established meta decks. For this series, the webcam games will have a commentary track with other experienced community figures who will give their take on the gameplay. Today's commentators are none other than Lurker and Sinestra. We hope you enjoy this episode.
All right. Lurker here, and I have Sinestra with me.
Hi guys.
Today we're going to be watching a game about a new commander, Vadrok, Apex of Thunder. And the basic idea for this deck is that if you mutate a creature onto another creature, when you target them with a spell of some kind, specifically, generally a
bounce spell.
A bounce spell, thank you.
Yeah.
You can return both of them to your hand. So Vadrok, you would mutate onto a Dockside Extortionist, for example.
Oh yeah, so some lines you can do with this is, so when you play Dockside and then you mutate the Vadrok onto it, you can get any of the bounce spells you want. So there are a couple of them that will help you easily go infinite. There's a Blink of an Eye, Into the Royal, or Winds of Rebuke. Basically, if you abuse those like over and over again, you can you either draw your deck or you mill your opponents out. Or even with Winds of Rebuke, I'm pretty sure you can Savine's Reclamation to get back Underworld Breach.
Yeah, and the deck's also on a couple other lines, like, just other kind of breach things, Breach Wheel.
Yeah.
And one card that I always love these Jeskai decks playing is Burning Inquiry, which is just one of those cards that if you really get it at the right time, it, like for example on turn one after you've played your own land, it can really kind of screw with everybody else's starting plans. And that's something that's always fun for me. The other decks that we have at the table against it are more meta decks. We have ASM playing a Tymna Kraum variant. Across the table is also Will on Tymna Thrasios. And then we have Kess bringing up the rear with Wedge. And if we want to look at everybody's opening hands.
Sure.
First up we have Enteroi, or Amaterasu, who is playing our Vadrok deck. He kept his first 7 with Mana Confluence, Volcanic Island, Misty Rainforest, Command Tower, so a 4-lander, Ponder, Felwar Stone, and Lion's Eye Diamond. Now, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this. A 4-lander on your first 7.
Yeah. It doesn't really look like you actually just have a great game plan. Like, at least when I usually mulligan for hands, I want to see like a clear-cut game plan of what I'm going to be doing with my hand. And for me, the only thing that this somewhat offers is like you have a Ponder, you have a Lion's Eye Diamond, maybe turn 2 you have a Felwar Stone. But like, I think that's, at least in my opinion, that's somewhat weak.
Yeah, 4 lands, no real source of card advantage. Lion's Eye Diamond, which for all intents and purposes here is just a combo piece that is kind of empty. It doesn't really do anything by itself. And the only actual card is Ponder. So I think that as a first 7, this is a very, very easy mull to your second 7.
Yeah, I would also say that like perhaps if you have some kind of card advantage in the command zone, maybe this a more mediocre or slower 7 would be okay. But I would honestly think that Vadrok's more of like a gas commander, where like you kind of want to go fast, right? And so actually just obviously you always want to make land drops and whatnot, but I don't think that this is the kind of deck that somewhat wants to go slow. It wants to like power out these strong hands or strong openers, right? So it can try to seize the opportunity when it's great for it. I don't think it actually like, if you try grinding against a Tymna Thrasios or Tymna Kraum list, or even Kess, like especially for Vadrok, I don't think you're gonna have a good time.
Anyway, moving on though, ASM kept a Marsh Flats, Hollowed Fountain, Underground River 3-lander with Ponder, Enlightened Tutor, Pact of Negation, and a Notion Thief. I like this hand a good amount. It was his second 7, and I don't think that this is a hand I really ever am gonna mold a 6 usually. It's got 3 lands, it's got a Tutor and a Ponder, so it's got a turn 1 play. It does have the Pact. The Pact isn't gonna be relevant until mid to late game. And then it has one of the best hate pieces for this kind of pod, Notion Thief. Steals all the draws, steals all the card advantage, and combos with any of the wheels that anybody else might play as well.
For me, I think it's okay. I would prefer to like maybe have a little bit more ramp or like, you know, something to do with more on turn 1. I think on turn 1, well, when I look at this hand, I can see maybe you can do turn 1, you just play a land, then you Enlighten Tutor for a mana crypt, right? Turn 2, you play your land.
That's my turn 1.
Yeah, and then turn 2, you could honestly just hold up Notion Thief on turn 2, and if anyone tries wheeling,
that's kind of strong.
Yeah, that's very. Yeah.
On a table where I could conceivably see 3 of these decks on Wheel of Fortune and Twister and even Windfall, right? I could conceivably see 3 to 4 of these decks. You know, I would be surprised if all of these decks were not on Time Twister, right? So there's just a chance that anybody has it. So if you can just hold up Notion Thief, that sounds great to me.
Yeah. I think especially on like Entroy or Wedge's deck, like they sound like they would want to wheel like ace, you know, they put out all their mana and they just want to wheel ASAP.
Moving on, Will, who had to go down to 6, kept his 6 of City of Brass, Morphic Pool, 2-lander with Mox Diamond, Ponder, another Notion Thief, and an Elves of Deep Shadow. This is a great 6. We didn't, unfortunately, see what he put at the bottom, but yeah, I mean, it's got some ramp. It's got multiple pieces of ramp. It doesn't have any interaction, so that's a little unfortunate, but it also does have a Notion Thief. Once again, being able to hold it up as soon as turn 2 or 3, I think that you'd probably just play your Elves of Deep Shadow and your Ponder and try to maybe hold it up turn 2, but...
Yeah, it looks like a very solid hand to me.
Yeah, and then Wedge, also with a pretty solid hand, I think, of Swamp, Bloodstained Mire, Scalding Tarn, Preordain, Gamble, Arcane Signet, Time Twister. So he does actually have the Time Twister that we were just talking about. 2 Notion Thieves in 2 other people's hands.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, this will be a little interesting. Probably a turn 1 Gamble or a Preordain. Yeah.
I feel like for me it's an easy gamble for the Mana Crypt, and then you play the Mana Crypt Arcane Signet, right? As long as everything goes okay.
As long as everything goes okay. Personally, I don't play Gamble in many of my decks anymore because the card Gamble hates me. I'm a very unlucky player, and it always decides, you know, doesn't want to keep the card that I tutored for. So.
That's just you. It loves me. This is a 1-mana demonic tutor for me. I'll take it.
All right. So let's get into the gameplay.
Sure.
All right. So getting into the game immediately, and Vadrok's going first. Plays his Volcanic Island. And he goes for that Ponder that we saw in that opening hand.
So what do you think you would want to find off of this Ponder?
A card advantage engine.
Yeah, so
really.
Like Remora, Heuristic Study, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a Remora or Heuristic Study is kind of what I'm looking for. Honestly, a tutor for either of those would be fine. A tutor for a wheel would be fine. Like, I don't love this hand if I'm Vadrok. I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think that you really need to find some gas.
I could honestly even see maybe taking a wheel, because what you can do is you can wheel and then hold priority and just crack your LED. It's a little risky. Oh my god.
Oh, well, he finds the Mana Crypt.
Oh my god.
He finds the Mana Crypt.
It was off the top.
He didn't start with that. He didn't plan on that. He did start with the Felwar Stone. This hand actually just went from
He just got rewarded for the Ponder. I mean,
So this hand went from not great to ridiculous. Very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
He actually. So here's the funny thing: we know what the rest of his hand is now. It's nothing. He actually has nothing left.
Yeah.
He has no interaction. He has nothing other than ramp, really. Right?
No, he doesn't have ramp now either. So he literally just has lands in hand. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he just had the Ponder, the Felwar, and the Lion's Eye Diamond for spells.
Yeah.
So, assuming he didn't top deck the Mana Crypt, he might have one more spell in his hand, but we don't know. Oh, and the second Ponder.
Yeah.
It's fired off.
So why do you think ASM might have gone for a Ponder instead of the plan we talked about earlier, where Enlightened Tutor? and then play a Notion Thief turn 2.
So I mean, I guess it really depends on what he top decked, right? But you know, assuming he top decked some sort of card advantage engine that he can just play on turn 2.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Oh,
it's the third.
You know, it could have just been the table talk convinced everybody that pondering was the correct decision.
Maybe they'll all find Mana Crypt like JP.
Yeah. We were in the voice chat and were able to listen in on this game while it was going on, and everybody had a lot of pressure on Wedge on his next upcoming turn to play a Ponder.
Yeah.
I know that if I was in that game and I didn't get to see a Ponder. So yeah, Will does exactly what we thought he would do with the Ponder and the Elves of Deep Shadow.
Yep.
Probably going to try to follow up next turn with some kind of Notion Thief or something. Wedge did go for exactly the plan that Sinestra had talked about, which was he goes for a gamble for the Mana Crypt. And because I was listening into the game, he asked me to pick a random number, of course. And, you know, I told you I was unlucky, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Oh, goodness.
So, of course, I picked the Mana Crypt. And it went straight to the graveyard.
I would have loved his hand otherwise. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens. It's rough because he's going last too, so it's like it's just a huge blow, I think.
So going last in general in 4-player in EDH is it's so hard. You are at such a disadvantage compared to the people going, first and second.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things too is he has a time twister in hand, so I think maybe his plan might have been like, had everything gone right, you would do Mana Crypt into your Felbar Stone or something, and then you time twist, right? But because he's going last, the turn 2 time twister doesn't seem nearly as good because everyone else gets to play their stuff before him. So it's like,
yeah, and so then I called 4. I'm very sorry, Wedge, for that one. I mean, obviously, though, he top-decked the Mana Crypt, and then he gambled for a Ponder, so that he could also play the 4th Ponder.
Sure. Of course.
And, really, it's just him getting punished for not playing the Mana Crypt out of his hand, right? Like, clear.
All right. I'm down. All right.
So we haven't mentioned at this point, but you might notice that JP is... he's playing on Mox Field, which we love as a platform for hosting decks. It's not the greatest for playing online games with other people.
I'm not sure if it was in its intended purpose, but it works just fine.
It ended up working out well enough. They made us promise that we would shame him at least a little bit for not getting his camera working properly.
Okay, so there's his one land drop out of up to 4 into his hand.
Yeah, he's gonna play another land. Does his little fetcheroony. So he gets a Steam Vents. Now, from what we know of his hand, he really still doesn't have very much to do. So it really depends on what his last 2 draws were. So he did get the best card, the Burning Inquiry.
Oh, boy.
And as we know, his hand is absolute garbage right now. So this is the most gas I think I've ever seen a Burning Inquiry be, other than a few weeks ago when I had a game, somebody turn 1'd it playing first and everybody else just scooped.
Oh, is that the one where someone discarded all their lands and they scooped?
Yeah, somebody discarded all their lands. Somebody else was just like, this is a 3-player game and I'm playing Tymna and my strategy is just ruined as well. And I'm like, well, I don't want to play a 1v1, so. Fastest game in the West.
Yeah.
We've got everybody discarding here, so this is going to be pretty interesting. as far as what everybody ends up losing. Because, Burning Inquiry is one of those cards that just throws a game into madness. Everybody gets 3 new cards, everybody Ancestral Recalls, but then everybody loses whatever their current plan was, usually. Some people end up getting more burned than others, and sometimes that just can be the game, you know?
Yeah.
But we'll see what everybody discards.
ASM discarded Windsor Rebuke, a land, and I forget what else. Will discard his Notion Thief, so that's actually pretty rip.
Will also discards his Force of Will.
And you don't need that. Who needs interaction?
And what does JP discard? Let's see it.
Dramatic Reversal, Swan Song, and Mana Confluence.
And 1 land.
That's like pretty much nothing.
We didn't really... He didn't have either of those cards to start with.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really actually give us very much information about what's left in his hand.
He honestly just does not look like he's in a good position right now. Because, I don't know, maybe he found a gas card out of those top 3 cards. But, yeah. Oh, so there's the Enlightening Tutor. I'm pretty sure that's a Mana Crypt. Had he done this turn 1, though, I don't know. I mean, had he done this end step, then he could have just ran out of Notion Thief. But, I mean, I think it's probably still fine.
I believe this is end step.
No. He did Ponder, so he's doing this on his upkeep.
Gotcha. My mistake. So he's upkeep, casting the Tutor, grabbing the Crypt, and maybe he's found a Mana Rock to slam out.
That would be ideal.
And does he find something to play with that Mana Crypt, or is that just he has the land drop, so he's still got a lot of options, actually.
Yep.
We don't really know what's left in his hand. I think he still has the Pact Negation and the Notion Thief that we need from his opener.
Yeah, he still has the Notion Thief. But Willie lost his Notion Thief, so I'm not too sure what his game plan is right now. Obviously, it depends on his hand, but...
Yeah.
I think right now, I would guess that because JP fired off a Burning Inquiry and he just played literally nothing afterwards, it might be safe to say that he doesn't really have much in his hand right now.
Yeah. So Will goes for a Mana Dork and passes.
Yeah, so I actually think this is kind of significant because he has 2 mana up right now, and he clearly has more than 4 mana on the table, so he could have easily just made a Thrasios right there. But him holding up those 2 lands, I think, either signals he has some kind of tutor or some kind of interaction. It looks like he just has something,
I mean, that very much signifies to me that there's either an Abrupt Decay, an Assassin's Trophy, or a Mana Drain, or a Counterspell sitting in his hand, or he has a hand that is absolute garbage, and he needs to hold up that mana every turn to have everybody else assume that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But Wedge just goes for it.
Honestly, even after he gambled so badly, this is his turn 2 is great. I think he's just powering all this mana and he's just funneling that into more card draw. I think he has 2 black floating. It honestly is pretty strong.
Still 2 more black floating. Yeah. He goes for the Dark Ritual into Time Twister. Which I think that with 2 cards left in your hand, as you can see there, he really is hoping that the new Fresh 7 starts this game over right. And going into this new Fresh 7, who do you think's the most kind of advantaged overall? Because I feel like normally I might say Will, but the fact that he's going last and getting to use his Fresh 7 last compared to everybody else is a little bit troubling for him.
It is definitely troubling,
especially with the amount of mana that JP has. So JP kind of got very lucky.
He got so lucky.
he had a garbage hand from the start. He had a 4-lander he draws into Burning Inquiry and completely screws ASM's turn 2.
Yeah.
As well as kind of screws Will's turn 2. Because Will could have just powered out a Notion Thief at that point. And if Will had been holding up the Notion Thief for the Burning Inquiry, if the turn order was just a little bit different, either Will or ASM could have held up a Notion Thief, and Notion Thief into Burning Inquiry is a I win the game kind of situation a lot of the time.
So like right here, I think ASM could have been holding up the Notion Thief, right? If he did the turn 1 end of turn Enlightening Tutor. Maybe Wedge would have been more careful and saw that ASM has 4 mana up. Maybe that's something, right? But even just keeping up the Notion Thief would be really strong.
I think that what most likely would have happened there, though, was that Wedge goes for Twister, ASM goes for Notion Thief, and then Will, who still has 2 mana up and a piece of interaction,
that's true. Yeah,
slams that on ASM's Notion Thief, and then they all get to win. So,
but I feel like that would still be like a better idea rather than like turn 1 ponder, just not sure what because whatever you pondered for is probably gone.
It really depends on what his. It really depends on what his top deck was.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's true.
I can't say.
That's true.
But I do like in general the just turn 1 P-Tutor.
Yeah,
it really seems fine to me.
Yeah.
So Wedge, after his Twister hand, does find an Imperial Seal to use one of his black mana for. That's pretty nice. That's one of the best cards you can find when you just have random black mana floating. I feel like the best cards, obviously, are just any 2-mana rock.
Yeah.
The thing you really want. Fine,
yeah.
But...
While Imperial Seal is kind of good, I think I want better things to do with my open mana. Maybe just like, a rock or something like that. It's kind of sad that it has to float. Some of it has to float away. But, I mean, this Imperial Seal is great because it gives you a game plan.
Yeah. So, right here, it was a moment where JP revealed to everybody that he meant to end of turn tutor.
Yeah.
And even as a spectator in that game, it was very obvious to me that if he had end of turn tutored, he would have a win con attempt right now. He would have one.
Well, I think he told everyone that I could have won, right? Which is a little bit I think it's a little difficult just because Will literally has a fresh 7, ASM has a fresh 7. They both have open mana for this kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But yeah, he was definitely signaling to everyone that he has a win attempt, which I think should get people on their guard,
Telling people that you have a win attempt is almost never something I'm going to recommend.
Yeah, that's not a great one.
Unless you are literally saying, all right, guys, I've got it, and then you tap 5 and go Naws.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. Then you can tell them, like, yep, I've got it, and then do it immediately. That makes sense.
I think the rough point was like when he said I had a win attempt, then he passes turn, so then he's going to try it next turn, which is
Right.
Okay. Mox Opal, more mana.
I believe that was this turn. Yeah. No, with a Mox Opal and a Memnite slamming down, and he's now at the point where he just kind of needs any bounce spell and any generator. He's got so much mana.
Yeah. Memnite really the crown of value right there.
So at the very beginning of this game, JP said something along the lines of he misspoke. He told us afterwards what he meant to say, but he said something along the lines of, "One of the things I love about this deck is that there are no dead cards."
Yeah.
And he says that, and he was like, yeah, compared to like CST, where like if you draw the Isochron, you can't really play it, and if you draw the Reversal, you can't really play it. What he was trying to say was that like you can always just slam whatever card. You don't have to like worry about holding combo pieces, but it is not the same thing as having no dead cards. That Memnite is not really helping his game plan in any significant way at the moment, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Memnite sometimes in Tymna decks where, obviously that turns like an attacker into a card draw, right? But Memnite for a Vadrok is, I mean, it's still great because it's a mutate target, but saying that you would play it anyways is, I don't think, very accurate.
Right. No, it's not a card that you really want because it doesn't do anything until you already have some other pieces that need to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. With all this in mind, ASM's just gonna.
Did JP literally just pass? Oh my god.
Yeah, JP. So this was the turn. I believe I'm right that this was the turn where JP announced he had an attempted win, and then just passed.
Yeah, which is very fishy. I think it tells everyone I think it also tells everyone he has a top deck tutor, because if he wasn't able to do it right then that means that he wouldn't be able to go for it, right? So.
Oh no, that's what it was. He did tell everyone that he had a top deck tutor specifically. Like he specifically said like, oh, I meant to do something on end step. Yeah. And for all of you who are newer to the format, when someone forgets to do something on end step, it is 99% of the time a top deck tutor.
Yeah.
It's a very, very common mistake, very common misplay. You just gotta learn how to remember how to do it. It's very hard, but about a quarter of your turn is played on the end of the person before you. So you gotta remember that.
So this is important. This is a turn 3 Kraum, which is a good amount of value, but I think that's like one of the more mediocre plays with the Tymna Kraum list. Like it's still fine, right? But it's not something that you want to have like, because he just got wheeled. So hopefully he would have more to do in his hand, but because he got wheeled, because he's playing his Kraum, it doesn't look like he actually has that much to be doing with his hand, which I think is kind of unfortunate. Like I would prefer to ramp here. I would prefer to deploy like a cheaper card draw engine, but like Kraum after you have like 7 cards in hand, I think it's kind of telling that you probably had a bad hand from the wheel.
Yeah, you got a bad break from that wheel. If with 5 mana, if you can't even just play like a mana rock and then Tymna, which I think is almost just a better play at that point. And then you play Kraum the next turn and draw 2 cards or something, right?
I mean, but
and you still get to hold up 1 mana on both of those turns.
Right,
is kind of the other thing. You get to still hold up interaction for both turns, which this is kind of more of an all-in. Like I'm gonna not really have any interaction on this turn, but maybe next turn I might. Right? Yeah.
I think turn 3 Kraum is still pretty good, but it's like, definitely not something you want to be seeing when you have a fresh set.
So the other thing that this does, though, is if you really respect your opponents, like I'm sure ASM does for Will and Wedge, he's also essentially saying, I'm tapping out here, all right? Yeah. JP just announced a win attempt on the next turn. We have a signaled win attempt. So I'm going to force you guys to hold up your interaction for his win attempt, and I'm not holding up my interaction. So that on my turn, after he goes for his win attempt, I get to untap and I just win. I think that might be what ASM's plan is here. Because if all goes according to ASM's plan, it'll probably be something like JP casts 2 spells, and then Will or Wedge have to cast 2 spells to stop him. And ASM gets to draw 2 cards, untaps with 5 mana, 6 mana if he draws a land, and might have a win attempt of his own.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I like that plan a lot. I mean, I think if I'm ASM, almost 100% of the time, I'm probably just tapping out because I want either Willie or Wedge to deal with.
Force Will and Wedge.
Yeah, exactly.
So now the issue is here. Will takes the bait and just says, okay, Bloom Tender, and once again, I don't play Thrasios, I don't play Tymna, I'm going to hold up mana, I'm going to hold up interaction.
He's holding up, I
Will
think,
says
4 mana at this point, right? Yeah.
Will says,
5 mana. Yeah.
5. Will is holding up 5 mana.
Yeah.
All right, he's like, fine, you win, I'm going to hold up interaction.
Yeah.
And Wedge, unfortunately, says, okay.
I'm going to bite.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can win first.
It's like,
also, which is a gambit.
Also, JP just look at all that mana JP has up. I think he has a fresh 7. He said he had a win attempt, right? So, I mean, maybe what Wedge is trying to do is trying to win right before JP. Trying to, because maybe he's hoping that JP doesn't really have that much interaction. He just was trying to, win as soon as it gets to his turn. But I think the other telling sign is that Willie just
kept all this mana up, right? It seems pretty clear to me that he probably has interaction, or at least is threatening interaction.
So now, one thing to make note of is that JP on his turn, if JP has no interaction right here, right? On his turn, if he had tried to actually win and he had remembered to do his end step tutor, he would have just gotten stopped by Will.
Yeah.
If he had tried to win and done what his plan was, which was trying to win right away, he would have actually just lost. He would have gotten stopped right away because although Wedge and ASM were both tapped out, Will had 2 mana up, and Will would have been able to stop JP.
So, something I just realized right now is that Will is actually representing Adnaw's mana, so he could have very well.
He is also representing Naw's mana. Yeah,
he could have definitely
but instead he has a Drown in the Loch, which now this is pretty funny because Drown in the Loch is one of the few things here that would have stopped both Oracle into Demonic Consultation or Consult into Oracle.
Yeah.
There aren't actually that many things that do it fully.
Yeah.
Because it's always kind of an interesting decision as to whether or not you play the Oracle first or the Consult first. In general, Consult is much easier to counterspell. It's an instant.
Yeah, definitely.
There are 3 times, 4 times as many counterspells that we play in our format that counterspell instants and sorceries than there are that counterspell creatures.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean, obviously, even including Assassin's Trophy and Abrupt Decay and Swords to Plowshares, there are still just more things that hit Console than Oracle, slightly.
Yeah.
But there are also just a lot of things that only hit one or the other. Red Elemental Blast right there on the stack is a great kind of showing of that, as well as the Force of Negation only hits one of them, right?
He got the Notion Thief back, but he has to exile it.
That is so unfortunate. Well, and now, with everybody's interaction completely burned.
Oh yeah, it's just like JP is so happy right now. Like
this looks like this is just gonna be JP's victory.
Yeah, ASM is tapped out. Wedge is tapped out. Will just had to use 2 pieces of interaction. It kind of seems like a wrap right now.
Oh yeah, no. ASM took a gambit on Will and Wedge. Wedge used that gambit to try to just go for it, thinking that he would have enough.
I don't.
And
I honestly don't think I would have gone for it if I was in Wedge's position.
I think that is. I think I agree. I think that is the kind of the only real decision that I disagree with overall from all of these people. I get the decision making here, but I also think, with JP there, I think it is so ridiculously unfortunate that he did not find a single piece of interaction.
Yeah.
Because if he had a single piece of interaction and he had tried to go for it on his turn as he had planned, he would have gotten it.
Yeah.
Now, without a single piece of interaction, though, he tries to go for it. Will stops him immediately. Yeah. ASM just gets to untap and do the exact same play. Yeah. Maybe ASM has an even better play, but he was kind of saving because he specifically wanted to tap out.
Yeah.
Will gets to untap and do a normal play as well, and maybe ASM or Will hold up a piece of interaction for Wedge, but I think Wedge might actually get there at that time.
Yeah.
Now, of course, at the end of Wedge's turn, after he has had the sad Oracle Scry,
there's the Mystical Tutor. He was signaling the turn beforehand, and it looks like it's just over, I think maybe you could have had some hope that Wedge has a mental misstep or something, because I think almost in that entire stack there wasn't really something you could mental misstep besides the Red Elemental Blast, but yeah.
For Wedge, there was nothing he could mental misstep.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for ASM could have mental misstepped multiple things from Wedge, though. So I don't think that ASM has the mental misstep either.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
So
the key decision is he could find maybe Intuition and put the pile so it's LED, Underworld Breach, and I think Savine's Reclamation, and then have a good win from that kind of thing. Actually, is it LED on the field? Oh, it's
LED is already in
yeah. So
play,
it's way easier. So it's just
So-
Underworld Breach, Savine's Reclamation, Brain Freeze at that point.
Oh
and
well,
you just
so
win.
so kind of at this point, if you are JP, what do you like? How do you think you sequence your line? Because I think what he ended up doing was he ended up going for some kind of like piece of protection. I think he played like a Brand Abolisher or like a Silence or something before he actually even attempted his win.
I think what actually happened is I'm pretty sure we can probably watch through, but I'm pretty sure he gets
we'll
a
see it
high
in a moment,
he gets a
but-
high tide, and I think he wheels or something like that, and then he gets the Grand Abolisher. Like for me,
Gotcha.
For me, in my perspective, like I almost feel like all three players are out of interaction. So while this intuition line could theoretically be risky, I feel like everyone's out of mana or out of interaction, right? And you could even just flash back to Savine's Reclamation by like just tapping your mana. You don't have to crack your LED to do it, and then you could just go for it.
Yeah. That
he-
would just kind of get there.
Yeah, because he's just pooping out mana right now. Anyways, like I forget how much mana he has. He must have at least like I feel like 8 or 9
Right.
mana. Yeah, I was like, look at that.
So he does go for the high tide.
Yeah.
And I think he just doesn't even have anything else to cast on that end step, and
No,
just immediately kind of goes into his next turn,
Dude,
if I recall correctly.
sad life. I think Willie. It doesn't matter too much, but we told everyone that Vadrok was a high tide deck. But had Willie tapped City of Brass instead, maybe he would have Tropical Island or Underground Sea up for double blue mana during this, high tide shenanigans.
And we see the accursed basic mountain come into play. I'm just going to recommend everyone to not run basic mountains. Even if you are a back to basics deck, you can just run Blood Moon, and then all of your new land drops are mountains, right? So. So he goes for the high tide,
Yep.
and he does end up getting there from here. He's gonna kind of high tide out, make a bunch load of mana.
Yeah.
I believe he goes for a wheel, and from there plays out. I believe it's a Cloud of Fairies.
Yeah, I think
combo.
this is a cloud right now. I don't remember actually.
Yeah.
Let's see. So he has up to 4 mana floating right now.
We asked Wedge during the gameplay to represent the colors of mana that JP was holding up for us.
Okay, so there's the Cloud
So
of
he
Fairies.
plays the Cloud of Fairies.
Oh, Kraum Trigger, let's go. But yeah, this almost pretty much just seems like infinite mana at this point. I think with if he just Vadroks onto the Cloud of no, he needs a bounce too, right? Okay.
Right. The basic combo once again is that we've got the Vadroks, we've got the Cloud of Fairies. Now we need any card that either exiles and returns them back to play, or any card that that can get us to just return to our hand. So I think that he's Recruiter of the Guarding, trying to find a maybe a Spell Seeker.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking exactly. Spell Seeker. Yeah, it looks like he does have that. Yeah, because once you get the Spell Seeker, it's pretty. You can go infinite. You can get infinite mana.
Yeah, so once you get the Spell Seeker, then you can very easily go and grab your bounce spell.
I think
and
it's very neat too, because if you get, like, let's say you have the Vadrok with so after you get infinite mana and whatnot, and you have the Spell Seeker out, you'll have a bounce spell, and I think with the very last bounce spell, you can bounce the Spell Seeker, or you could even bounce this Recruiter of the Guard, find Spectral Sailor, and just win from that.
instead he goes for even more mana.
That's what he needs.
So the fun thing about this deck, honestly, is that there are kind of a lot of lines to take.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not gonna, say that these are the wrong lines. I do think that obviously me and Sinestra have had a little bit more time to think about some of these things, especially, we already saw the game. We already kind of knew that everybody else had no interaction. And I feel like if JP played with these players more like me and Sinestra have, he would kind of know that that they were already out at that point.
I can understand though, because
maybe he didn't believe them.
Well, he's also like there's like he's playing on cam for the first time with this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, sure.
I could definitely understand the nerves, right? I would definitely be very nervous. I'd probably missequence a lot of things.
Oh yeah, well. Oh, so I'm sure that at this point he was just very worried about screwing it and not actually winning from here, because that would be quite embarrassing.
Yeah.
He does get there,
yeah.
But at this point I believe Vadrok's a second High Tide. Was the
he recast High Tide.
So he has a number of mana that. It just kind of doesn't matter at a certain point. You keep track of it for fun more so than because it matters, right? If you've ever played a DPS role in an MMO, it's all about getting the numbers as high as possible.
It's not technically infinite mana, but it's practically infinite mana. It's like,
so, I mean, as a player who very much enjoys. Oh, right, that is right. JP's gambit here is he goes for a windfall, and ASM, as we all recall, started his last turn with 7 cards.
Yeah,
he played his commander, and then he drew 3 more cards over the course of the next 3 turns from his commander. So they all go to a fresh 10 cards.
So
now,
he actually but he actually cracks his LED like in response too. So it's like,
oh yeah, no, it's one of those things where if Will right at this moment had a swan song that he was just sitting on, and he hits that windfall after the LED has been cracked, he kind of just kills. He kind of just kills JP. Unfortunately, he has a Chain of Vapor, and Chain of Vapor is actually not very good against this deck. All of the cards are ETBs. The whole combo is that you're trying to Chain of Vapor and stuff.
Well, so he's Chain of Vaporing in response to the windfall, so that like it'll go back to his hand and then goes to discard.
Right.
So
the main issue though is that there are still enough artifacts and enchantments out that the Dockside combo is likely to still get there.
Yeah. So one of my problems, I guess, with this line is, so one of the things with the intuition line was like, maybe it's like a little bit risky with the, because you might not have that much mana for protection and whatnot, but I feel like this line is almost equally as risky because you're refilling your opponent's hands. Maybe you're giving them, I mean, it might be unlikely, but you're giving them free interaction almost, right? And the fact that he's cracking this LED too is just like, I don't know. I think it's still fine, but I think it's like, I feel like it's almost like equal risks, I guess, and I feel like the intuition line is was more guaranteed, in my opinion.
I think that this line might be a little bit more risky overall, but I do think that there is a good fact to consider that we already know. I believe Will's Force of Will is in his graveyard.
Force of Negation.
Force of Negation.
Yeah. Oh.
I know that his Force of Negation is. I believe that there's also a Force of Will in a graveyard right now, or maybe in his exile.
I think that was it got time twisted because he discarded to Burning Inquiry and then got time twisted. Yeah. Yep. So I think that so both ASM and Wedge actually still have like pretty decent free interaction in hand, but I mean that they can draw into, but it's still kind of unlikely.
Well, so the thought would be it is a gambit on... Oh, right, I forgot, actually. The Chain of Vapor did bounce around a few times.
Yeah. He's bouncing this Priest of Titania, so he's just cutting off like any kind of green mana. Maybe it just gets rid of a Nature's Claim or something like that,
drawing your opponents into a bunch of cards on your combo turn is always a little bit risky, but it is also kind of the thought that you have way more mana on your combo turn than they have.
Oh yeah,
And if you're all drawing into the same number of cards, obviously there are like, opponents are drawing 30 cards, you're drawing 10 here, but at the same time, you have more mana, so maybe you just have access to more counterspells. Yeah. And more interaction to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he gets there anyways, because it's like, he has just so much mana, he's drawing the card, and like, everyone else is, they're definitely tapped out, so the only interaction they could meaningfully have is free interaction, right? But I still think it's a little more risky.
So yes, indeed, the Assassin's Trophy was still in Will's hand. He was holding up so many different things.
Oh, yeah.
But none of them were things that actually stopped Vadrok. He specifically, everybody would have needed to stop that high tide. That was, I think, something that Assassin's Trophy doesn't do, and that's something that Chain of Vapor doesn't do.
Do you think you could, I'm not too sure about this, but do you think you could have, so in response to the mutate onto Cloud of Fairies, do you think you could just Assassin's Trophy the Cloud of Fairies? And then so he wouldn't get his mutate trigger, and so he would basically just use a lot of mana for nothing, and then now he's left with, he needs to bounce the Vadrok, and then he needs to mutate onto the dock side now, which is just like, at least that's messing up with how much mana he has on that turn to go off.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been a line of attack. So one thing that's always very fun with new brews is that other people have no idea when is the appropriate time to use interaction on you.
Yeah.
Every time I've played a brand new deck that kind of had, a brand new combo that people hadn't seen before that was a little bit different than other things, people don't know when or where their interaction is actually necessary.
That's true.
And it's definitely something that you should use politically to your advantage when you bring out a brand new deck to a play group that hasn't seen it before. Mm-hmm. But you should also, in general, like we told everybody what the combo was.
Yeah.
We told them what the combo was. It's just it's sometimes hard to see the actual lines of interaction. As far as everything goes. One thing that I love about like Dave that I've played for so long is that sometimes people just use the interaction midway through your combo turn and you're just like, all right, I pay one more mana and continues comboing with the exact I just pay one more mana and remove one more +1/+1 counter and start my combo over,
That's hilarious. Yeah, some people just don't know the lines. So I think that is actually one of the strengths about bringing a lesser known deck or something like that. Like if you have CST on the battlefield or Kess and you play Oracle, people kind of know when they should interact with you. It's not very hard to tell. But yeah, with something like Vadrok, who has a very unique kind of win con, I think it's hard to see when you should interact.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so he has the Lotus Petal and he's playing. Let's see.
All right, so he does find a Grand Abolisher.
Dude, this guy's so lucky from his wheels. Literally so.
So
lucky.
once again, in a 4-player game, there is definitely a large element of getting a little lucky sometimes. It won't get you everywhere. So in fact, ASM does find the Force of Will. For the Grand Abolisher. But the thing about Force of Willing a Grand Abolisher is that it has already eaten a counterspell.
Yeah.
It has generally done its job. The chance of somebody else now having another counterspell is just so hard.
Imagine if JP tried to go for it right now though, without the Grand Abolisher and with everyone having this interaction up, it would just been so rough.
Yeah. So he does have the Flusterstorm for the Force of Will.
Dude, he just draws into everything. He just has everything.
Sometimes your deck rewards you for being a faithful servant of the deck.
This is true.
And I feel like that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It does also show kind of the strength of this deck in a lot of ways. I think that it does, just me and you being able to talk about so many different lines that you could take here. Kind of shows one thing that personally I love about decks, which is I love when decks kind of give me these big puzzles of like, all right, what are you doing? What's your plan?
Right.
How are you going to get there? One thing that kind of card advantage in the command zone doesn't give you as much is kind of forces you to really be creative with some of those plans.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, the frantic
and
search.
there's the frantic search.
It's like
so that after everything, he has a bajillion more mana.
it's just
Double high tide rolling in the deep.
so. Yeah, I think I joined cEDH a little bit later than a lot of other people, so I never got to see High Tide do like some crazy stuff. But I'm just so glad I get to see it in this game. Like, just see how much mana High Tide produces. It's great.
Yeah, there was definitely a time when I thought Snapcaster Mage was a good enough card to play in cEDH, and during that time, I definitely got multiple triple tides. And triple tides are super fun.
Yeah.
And triple tide into a frantic search into like 17 mana, and then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna dump 6 of this mana over like I'm gonna like pay 2 mana into a divining top, crack a fetch land,
Oh, look at this. It's like, what was it, 8, 9 mana? Oh my god.
He's got 6 blue, 2 red, and 8 blue, 2 red, 1 black.
This is just ridiculous.
Or white. Sorry, he's not on black. He's on white. And he casts the Vadrok yet again.
So
show us the kill, JP.
So this is an interesting thing. I think we're going to eat our words. Where the Mem Knight was actually very useful. Both Recruiter and I think Brand Abolisher are humans, so he actually needed to mutate onto the Mem Knight.
That's so true. Wow, that is actually quite awkward. The number of humans he runs and has to run in this.
Spellseek's a human too. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I and so is Baron.
Oh yeah, Baron.
Is he not?
I'm pretty sure Baron's a human.
Wow. So yeah, I guess I never thought about that aspect and as to why he's running the Mem Knight and the Ornithopter. Is that he actually does have quite a few humans. Quite unfortunate.
I mean, he's fine right now though because he is running that Mem Knight.
It's true, you know. Mem Knight, pure value. Quote Lurker 2020.
So what is he recasting from this Vadrok? I actually do not remember. It could very well just be a frantic search again. Just, untap your lands, dig even deeper. Oh,
and there's the snap, and that is the combo. That's the win.
Well, it's not actually. Oh, it is. Yeah, because
no, that's the win. Yeah, because he's got 2 high tides going right now, man.
No.
With 2 high tides going.
No, because he would need to. So he snaps. Yeah, he keeps on snapping the Vadrok, and then eventually he snaps the Recruiter, right? And then he gets the Spectral Sailor. Yeah.
Well, from there are so many different ways you can win, but yeah. Basic idea now is, one of the many. So the really cool thing about this deck is how much it layers with all of these bounce spells. Which bounce spells, by the way, are pretty good interaction and removal.
Yeah.
So you get to play these removal pieces as combo pieces. That's kind of the real strength, I think, of this deck.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
You get to fill your deck with so much interaction that also happens to be a combo piece.
Now there's the Spectral Sailor.
For people from the Spectral Sailor, he gets to draw his deck out.
Yeah. So for people unaware of how you actually win, I'm pretty sure he's just going to Swords to Plowshare his Vadrok over and over again, and then he's just going to so he just gets like pretty much infinite life, and then he just rolling Earthquakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe that was the specific win that he called to everybody.
Yeah.
But, there are other wins that you can do very easily. Once again, you can just mill everybody else out with your...
Winds of Rebuke?
Winds of Rebuke, and then play a Windfall or something like that make everybody draw.
You would have to have, I think, an Angel's Grace or something, so you don't deck out yourself as well.
I suppose that's true. You could also just send a bunch of your own stuff to the graveyard in one way or another. But yeah, from here, that is the game. That was a pretty cool game. I really like this deck overall. What do you think about it?
I think the number one thing that you mentioned, that bounce spells or being both a combo piece and an interaction spell, is just something that feels great in Vadrok. Because I mean, we meme about JP a lot for this kind of thing, but it is kind of true that you don't actually run that many like dead cards. They're either interaction combo pieces or like some gas and value. So it was really cool to see the deck be able to do exactly what it intended in this game.